Characters. Who are they? What are they? Who will they become? So much goes into the creation of a character, their backstory, culture, beliefs, image, eye color, description, personalities, and so much more. As readers, we only get a glimpse of what truly goes into each character. So grab a beverage and get comfortable as we explore this episode's character in depth with your host, Madilynn Dale. Hey everyone, welcome back to the second episode of the season. I have a fun author with a fantastic character for you guys to meet today. And this character has a lot going on. And she's a very unique fantasy character that I am excited for you guys to learn about. So without further ado, let me bring in tonight's guest. Hey Nathan, how's it going?
It's going great, Madilynn. Thank you for that very kind introduction. It's great to see you again. I'm excited to share about Allison.
Yes. So speaking of Allison, go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers a little bit of the story she comes from and how she ties into it.
Yep. So the story is called Meadowvale. The name of the book is the name of the village where we start in the story. And we specifically see a particular family, a family of farmers. Family is called High Fallow. That's their last name. Two parents, and then there are three brothers and one sister, three sons and one daughter. And Allison is the daughter. So at the very beginning of the story, they are hardworking but humble farmers doing sort of everyday things. Of course, there's the farming itself, and there's cooking and cleaning and mending and everyday tasks. But the main thing that sets the story off is an army. So no, back up real quick. All of the characters are anthropomorphized animals. So anybody who's not anticipating that, I didn't want to shock you when I said an army of lizards. Main characters are rabbits. Army of lizards sweeps in, captures some villagers, burns some buildings. Some people get killed. It's an intense book, I think, but it's safe. It's wholesome for young adults if they want to read it. So like nothing too gory. But Allison is one of the characters who gets captured by one of the many soldiers who's gone through villages to basically take slaves for the evil emperor's mine. Ew. So that's where we start getting to know Allison. I don't know if does that answer?
Yes, it does. So her life is thrust into this chaos when she's captured. What is her world like? What does her mind go through as she transitions through that?
Yeah, Allison, oh my goodness. She is such a powerful character. And we see it more and more as the story unfolds. So before she's captured, she's just got this really deep, strong heart. She's a sweetheart. She's got a sharp mind, but most of what comes from her is just this unabashed kindness, unabashed delight in the world, sweetness toward her brothers. Yeah. So that follows through, even though she's captured, as she's sort of wrestling inside her mind of what in the world is going on, and she's looking at her captor who's gruff and doesn't say a lot. She's just like, there's this internal dialogue of her pondering, like, I wonder what's going on. There's no bitterness in her. She's like, in a sort of loving way, she's annoyed. She's like, well, this guy, what is his problem? Why would he do this? But that stops pretty fast, and then she's just like got this hope. And she wouldn't even call it hope. She's in the moment, being dragged away from her family. She cares. She has a soft heart. And so things like she feels the pain of this mess, the pain of loss. But that's not interrupted. That doesn't interrupt the hope and the kindness and the value of life that she has.
That is interesting. Yeah. What is something she discovers about herself once she's arrived where the captors are taking her? I'm trying to be as vague as possible too with this.
Oh man. Well, that's rough because there's so, oh my. Yeah. What did she discover about herself through this process? I think, how many I'll give spoilers.
You can totally give a couple spoilers because it's hard not to, especially when diving into their character. So.
Yeah. So in this story, magic is discovered. And there's a magical language, and there's this mineral that helps enhance that power. Allison gets pulled into discovering that she can wield magic. Mm. So the overlap, and here's the thing that really throws her for a loop, is the magic is crafted by sort of stereotypically magic. You have these magic words that you say, and they do magical things. That's kind of cliche. But the thing that empowers it, the things that amplifies or squashes it, is one's heart, one's strength of heart. Mm. And Allison, because she has such a strong heart, stumbles upon this extreme amount of power.
Yeah.
When it comes to wielding magic. And the thing that she discovers is it's kind of just her in and of herself, but also now that she's wrestling with this magic, she discovers that it's too much for her. She discovers that she can't control, contain, handle all of these feelings, experiences, passions that are just bubbling up inside of her. And
man. So her magic then, is that kind of tied directly to those crazy emotions she's processing then?
Yes. Not exclusively, but yes.
Okay.
So the way I don't know. I mean, partially I don't know I haven't outlined it too precisely because I wanted there to be some wiggle room. But the way it kind of shows up in the story is the language, the magical language, is what basically forms magical spells. But I mean, cheap analogy, but think about a car. You can build a nice car, but if it has no fuel, it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to do anything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so similarly, Allison, for fun fact, the librarian is his nickname. He's this guy that's been studying this magical language for a long time. He can't do it himself, even though he's been a scholar for years. He's I've seen other people do it. I wish I could. I'm frustrated. And he's like, Allison, I'm just going to experiment on you. It's not experimenting putting her on a lab table and dissecting her, but experimenting hey, try this sentence. And she does. And then boom, things start happening. He's like, whoa, he's surprised. So the connection there is her depth of heart is what fuels the magic. And so she always had a deep heart, but now that she's been shoved into using this magic language, it's exploded from her, sometimes literally.
Ooh, I like it. That's really cool because a lot of stories, when learning how to use their magic, they're like, oh, you have to control your emotions too. And hers seem to add fuel to it as well. Mm-hmm. So, is it common for her people to have that ability in this story?
Neither no nor yes.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that's hard to answer is because the magic language used to be more commonplace just in terms of people caring about it.
Yeah.
But that was many years ago, and for various reasons, most people have either forgotten about it or they're sort of they think it's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Some people are scared of it. So for the most part, they're sort of we don't deal with that anymore. And so people are capable, but most have never even been close enough to know that it exists such that they could sample their own skills.
That is so sad because it's such a fun thing. Ooh. So in this series, who are some of the important people to Allison?
Her family, of course. Again, she's got her parents and then her three brothers, so they're all important. But she also, there's a lizard
Mm-hmm.
He's technically supposed to be a bad guy, but because of just his disposition, he regrets where his empire, his culture has gone. They're becoming very, very destructive and violent prone. He thinks he thinks they are better than everybody else. So he's got some arrogance. He's got a lot of flaws in him, but there is this regret about how they're doing it. And so he finds Allison just trying to get by, and he's like, mostly, even though he's like so many details, my goodness, he's a high-ranking official, but because he's not violent enough for them, basically, he's sort of shoved to the side.
Oh yeah.
So he's like hangs out in his little study, just like reading books and like hating his own people. Allison, this bold, fearless but kind-hearted rabbit girl, pops up across the hall. So he's in the study.
Mm-hmm.
She's across the hall in the infirmary. I'm going to read a segment about her meeting him.
Ooh.
But when she meets him, he's like, whoa, like I'm supposed to be superior, but you're like blasting me with your passion and your like fearlessness. And she's polite, but she's still fearless.
Ooh.
So he becomes very important to her because he starts like, at first he's just like, hey, let me see if I can get something interesting out of her.
Yeah.
But he starts to care about her because she is a creature.
Yeah.
With bold kindness and passion.
Ooh, so she rubs off him and causes his character to grow as well. I love that. She's got so many important pieces that she plays in this story. And it's beautiful. Her character is magical in and of it herself. Does she get her passion and caring ability from a specific parent, maybe?
She has good parents.
Mm-hmm.
So they're good people. So that's one thing that's that helps. Of course it helps.
Yeah.
I think also some of it is just her personality, just the way that it is. But another big thing that's not really, it's like barely mentioned in the book. She had a sister that got killed some years before the story, like before we enter the story.
Yeah.
And so that shook their family. And that, of course, broke her heart. But then as she worked through that, it enhanced, it gave her more sympathy, more empathy,
mm-hmm.
more softness in her heart. But also, it also amplified her passion, her value of life. Again, in the segment I'm going to read,
mm-hmm.
a lizard guard gets killed. And she, even though she's captured in this random lizard jail, she still like weeps for this guy. Again, a random lizard guard that wasn't kind to anyone, but she just she feels death.
Yeah.
And she cares.
Very big heart. Oh man. So she does carry a little bit of trauma from losing her sister then forward. It may not be as strong, it sounds like, but she still feels that and is reminded of that then. Are there any other traumatic things from her past that showed up and maybe affected her character?
I think that's the key one.
Mm-hmm.
She's had, besides sort of that time period. So when her sister died, it was because there were lizard raids. Again, it's like barely even mentioned in the story, but this is what happened. There were lizard raids. It wasn't a full-on army invasion, but there were raids here and there. And her sister got killed in one of them. So she was young enough not to know exactly what was going on, but old enough to be like, this happened. My sister's gone. My heart is broken. This is traumatic. But besides that, thankfully, their family has been have had relatively simple lives.
Yeah, and then they come in and here they get taken away. With their capture, does anything else happen to her family? Or is it just like they take her and like a brother or?
All four siblings are taken.
Okay.
She meets up with her not young guest brother, but younger brother, Wearable. He's like another relatively main character.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't know it until they meet at the Lizard Empire. They're taken separately. Wearable and his little brother Jesse are in one group. Allison is taken by herself. And then she's like shoved into this random infirmary where there's a bunch of rabbits, like sort of injured or sickly looking rabbits on cots. None of them are talking. Some like bloody looking kid is dropped on a cot and they're like, hey, mend him.
Oh my
She's
God.
like, okay.
Wow.
It's my little brother. So traumatic, but it's like my little brother is here. So that's like, there's this glimmer of hope in this miserable world.
Oh my gosh. So he's just like, what? Like,
yeah. Well, a lizard guard drops him off and says, hey, deal with this kid.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's a traumatic way to like find out. I mean, he's alive on one hand, so there's a plus there, but to find him like that and be told to treat him, oh my gosh.
Yep.
How does she go about moving into that position where she has to take care of all these people? Does she have any background knowledge on how to tend to sick and wounded?
Yeah. She's, because I don't know enough true history, but I think just because of the pretend time period they're in, they have a general sense of like medicinal care. I mean, they're not physicians, they're not like trained doctors, but they know, like, I make it up. There are a couple random plants. I forget what I call them, but there are a couple random plants that are like medicinal. Some of them relieve pain. Some of them are good for staving off infections. So she's like, hey, and this exchange and other exchanges, she talks to the librarian. She's like, hey, do you have spring fern? Do you have this? Do you have that? I need some clean bandages. Like, she knows some of the basics. And so that's, yeah, it's almost commonplace background knowledge for most of the people who are living in the wilds. I mean, not wilds, but in their villages, just getting by.
Yeah, more rural areas, they have to have that kind of knowledge. So that's good. So that is one benefit, at least going in, even though she's just thrust into this unknown world. Oh, man. Does she end up picking up any of their, I guess, language? Because I'm assuming since they're lizards, they have a different language, or is it all one common language besides the magic words?
Common language besides magic.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Common language.
Nice. Is anything in particular that, let me rephrase that. Does she discover anything in particular about the lizard race that was unknown prior to like her being abducted?
Another tough question, because the lizards were slightly less ignored than magic. So most people throughout the rabbit villages were sort of like, magic doesn't exist, we don't care, that's weird, like fairy tales, moving on. Lizards, they're sort of like, well, we haven't seen them in a long time, so they probably have just like moved on and we don't know about them. And there were rumors, and they would like be bedtime stories to scare children about, oh, you'll be snatched up by lizards, so don't do whatever kind of things. But nobody really knew anything. They didn't even think the lizards were there.
Yeah.
Only a week's travel away, more or less. So in that sense, she, like, everything is new to her.
Ooh. Wow. Fairy tale come to life.
Yeah.
Ooh. That would kind of be terrifying. So, man. I'm going to take us back to a little bit more general questions focused on her. Where did the inspiration for Allison's character come from?
It's so random, but it's whatever. It is what it is. Years ago, so I'm 35. This is like 25-ish years ago. One of my brothers was dating a lovely lady named Allison.
Yeah.
And she, like, for whatever reason, I mean, my brother was his kind heart. Allison had a kind heart, and I was welcomed into the various family events, and she was like my adopted sister or adopting sister or whatever. And she had a really kind heart. I mean, she still does. But that's when the story started. I like took that name, took some of those personality traits, and I've of course fabricated a lot of stuff. But there is a lot of kindness. And I'm like, that's Allison. This is going to be my character now.
Oh, I like that. So I have to ask now too, did they stay together or did they split up? Your brother did?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's always hard. You get close
Yeah.
to them and their family. So
Oh.
I know, random thought in there.
No,
That'll be
not a random thought. It makes sense, but this is 25 years ago.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like,
So young love. So, with Allison being in this world and everything, what are some of her quirks that kind of make her stand out from the other characters besides like discovering she's got skills to use magic?
yeah. So, despite her really kind heart, she's bold and sometimes brash.
Ooh.
Definitely when it comes to the lizards, like if she feels like somebody's being unjust, she gets up in arms and she does not care.
Yes.
Yeah, there are a lot of times where different like citizens of the lizard empire are surprised at her because they're used to intimidating anybody and everybody they want to, even each other sometimes. But Allison, like they'll again, I'll read some of that in the segment I'm about to. But this is why the librarian is so intrigued by her, because she's brash. She's almost like insulting him when she meets him, because she's like, what are you doing? You're a boy, like you're a child, and he's an older gentleman.
Yeah.
So he was momentarily offended that she calls him boy, but she does not back down. It's great. Yeah, she doesn't back down, but she's not a bully, because when in their conversation, when he backs off from his bad attitude, she calms down and appreciates his change of demeanor, and then she becomes very polite. But that's one of the things that I think makes her stand out.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So does this cause her to have more friends with the lizard people, or does it aggravate and make more enemies?
Not exactly either, because the lizards are not friendly. The librarian, the nicknamed librarian, he is an extreme exception, because almost all of the lizards just have in their minds that we're better, we're taking over the world. Like that's kind of their vibe. The emperor himself is, I think he's a fascinating, enigmatic character, because you don't hear much from him in this book. He has some sinister plots, but the way he goes about them, instead of being like big and bombastic and like, oh, here's my monologue about the crazy plan I have. He's just like, he's subtle. He speaks softly. He's manipulative. He doesn't answer questions directly, but he asks really, really like cutting questions. So all that to say, she does not befriend anybody else. The emperor, the super evil emperor, is intrigued by her, but he just wants to use her.
See, I was wondering if she would meet him at any point, and that makes sense that he intrigues her. So, and I could definitely see. So I'm going to say she doesn't seem like she could be coerced into doing very much for him, though.
So random spoiler: the emperor, has discovered the magical language and this magical mineral, and he has set most of these captives to mining for it.
Yeah.
Like Fire Iron is its nickname, because he has this vision. He used to be. I mean, again, this isn't even in the book, but his backstory is he used to be a conventional conqueror. He's a big. I mean, even though lizards are already large, he's huge.
Yeah.
And then their way of conquering was just like send out soldiers, take over the world. Not good, but it like sort of straightforward thing. Then, because of his librarian, he discovered this magical language and mineral. He thinks to himself, I can, maybe I'm not just going to conquer the region. I want to conquer the world. I want to conquer the world.
Ooh.
And so he's been investing himself in delving into this magical stuff, and it's kind of making him a little crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So, Yeah, that's its own layer. My goodness.
Wow. So it's kind of like he's got this addiction to it, and now he's got conventional methods of making the addiction even worse by conquering. Oh man, that's crazy. And the fact that she is stuck having to deal with all these people and with her big heart, that kind of makes me hurt just a little bit, because I mean, she's thrown into all this chaos and all these evil people, and she's still shining brightly, sounds like.
She is.
Oh. So any final thoughts on Allison's character that you want to share with our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, I do. So just now you said, even though she's stuck in the midst of all of these terrible people, she's still shining brightly. Near the end of the book, she still has a core of kindness, but despair does put some cracks in her heart. And they're not yet written, but book 2 is going to follow her dealing with all of this heartbreak. And now also, like, the magic, not only does the magic just freaky in its own, just discovering, oh wow, I can do weird things. The magic also deepens her sense of the world around her, which means her soft heart is even softer. And it's too much for her. And near the end of the first book, you can, like, she basically tells her little brother, she's like, yeah, I gotta go on a long trip to deal with my problems, basically. And book 2 is watching her learning how to wield magic in a sort of practical Harry Potter-ish style.
Yeah.
But also her wrestling with, now the depth she had is even deeper and even more sensitive, and it's messing her up.
Oh, man. Wow. Well, Nathan, thank you so much for sharing with us a little bit about Allison and introducing her to us. Go ahead and tell everyone where they can grab this amazing series and follow you.
Well, the series is not series yet. It's book 1.
It's getting there.
It's getting there. We're getting there. So Meadowvale, fun fact, it's on Amazon. You can just look it up again, Meadowvale. If you want to go directly to my website, nmrudolph.com, my name is probably going to be listed on this thing, right?
Yes.
And so then it's just all one word, no dots or hyphens or anything, nmrudolph.com, and Meadowvale, as well as my other books, will all be right there.
Sweet. Well, everyone, thank you for watching. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. And remember, it's always time to go indie now.
Allison stared at the limp body of the lizard and began to cry. He may have been a vile creature, but nobody deserves to die like that. She knelt down to touch Cordova's blank face. His eyes were still open despite the absence of life in them. She shut his eyelids and said, "May you find peace." "Allison," Werewolf said. She looked at him, and he nodded behind her to the rest of the room. Only just then did she notice that all of the other patients had sat up or propped themselves on elbows, and all their eyes were fixated on her. "How long have you all been awake?" No one responded. "Will they come back for the body?" Still no response. "Can anyone tell me what I'm supposed to do with this poor creature?" Her voice was angry now. After more silence from the onlookers, Allison said, "Fine, I'll find someone who can." She knew it wouldn't work, but she tried to lift Cordova herself. After managing only to strain herself and feel like a fool, she resigned to dragging Cordova by his hands. "Where are you going?" Werewolf asked with panic in his voice. "I'm going to find someone who gives a dung about this poor animal. But they'll kill you. Then they can deal with my dead carcass as well," she said from the hallway.